You're all right.
Are you all right? Come on, can we start?
Over here.
The Tuesday, February 12th, March 12th, 2019 Facilities Committee meeting. I'd like to begin with introductions and administrative remarks. Anyone?
I actually have remarks on one of the vehicles we have over in transportation, the Ford Escape. If you remember, we had an Escape for security, and it was lemon, and we had issues. This is the sister. It was one serial number off. And since this is, we've worked through the agenda, it's come to our attention that we may be having some issues with that vehicle, that we may have to replace it. So there is money in the budget for a vehicle for this year. I was just talking to Mark. So you may be seeing that coming down the road. We just wanted to give you a heads up. That's the one that transportation, or if an administrator needs to go to a conference or something, that they end up using. And I happened to use it for something last week, and the transmission slipping, and it's leaking a little bit, so.
Should we get money back from the lemon law?
I say, how old is it?
No, it's out of warranty, and I'll pass the lemon law. This one made it past the warranty, but talking to the mechanics, they have some concerns about it. And we think we can still get a decent trade-in on it because it has 54,000, even though with the issues. But instead of letting somebody sit, the mechanics feel it's better to probably trade it in. So just wanted to give you a heads up. We don't have specifics at this point, but we wanted to give you a foresight that it's coming down the road at some point.
Fabulous. Anything else? All right. At this time, we'll entertain public comment. I believe most of you are familiar with the rules. If not, they are over on the side table, and you could sign in. And do we have any public comment tonight? Hi. Welcome. Yep. Just push button.
Hi, my name is Lucy Henkel. I'm a freshman at Radnor. Usually I'm here with my brother Chris, but he's sick today. As before, we're here in support of the bleacher project. We were unable to come to the last committee meeting when the planner provided her update, and it was rescheduled after school during our practice time, so we couldn't come to that either. But we were able to watch the meeting and view Ms. Schrader's presentation online. We wanted to comment on that discussion today. First, there was some concern about groups that think they've been promised things and rumors about improvements. My brother and I have attended all the community meetings, and he's a member of the steering committee. And no promises have been made, and everyone has been clear that any improvements beyond access, safety, and the bleachers are being considered for planning purposes and may not be immediately possible. So we don't think we should worry about promises that have been made or repeat any of those rumors. And second, there was a suggestion that we simply proceed with the bleacher repair, and that's a big concern for us. The problem is that you can't improve, fix, or replace the bleachers without planning for their access. And to do that, do I have to keep pressing this? Okay. And to do that, we need to consider how the bleachers are accessible from the Raider Road driveway and to things like bathrooms, concessions, ticket booths, and the fields in school themselves. So these are some of the things that have been discussed at the meetings, and they make a lot of sense, especially to us. In our family, we say always take the ramp, and we try to do that to remember our brother Pete by only going the way he could go. We definitely wouldn't want some of the things that look like extra improvements to slow down the improvements to the safety and accessibility of fields and bleachers. But even worse, even worse would be to not plan these improvements in the context of other things that every student and visitor needs. And lastly, we want to point out some things about the new drop-off area, specifically that despite some of the things that were made better, accessibility was also made a lot worse. If a person were dropped off in a wheelchair on the sidewalk under the canopy at the drop-off area, they would not be able to get anywhere, not to the school or the parking lot or the road, and not to the pool, fields, or bleachers because of the stairs, and there's no cutout on that sidewalk. So they'd be trapped there. And it's an inaccessible drop-off area, which is a really big mistake if accessibility is important. So this is why we keep coming to these meetings. This is an opportunity to make Radnor High School a place where someone can always take the ramp. To do that, we have to pay attention to the way some people have to get around. we have to pay attention to where they will need to go in the future. If we don't, we're going to, again, have an improvement that only some people can use. So please consider this as you hear what the committee presents in the future. We don't think we should be afraid of making a really good plan because it may take us some time to afford it. We should be more afraid of making improvements that aren't part of a plan for an accessible future for all of our students and visitors. And if it helps, try to take the ramp as you go about your daily life for a little while, and because it can really help understand what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Is there anyone else? Don't all jump up. Okay, so,
Jackie's getting it.
yeah, just, oh, now I can see in the back. The approval of the minutes is next. You good with the minutes?
I'm great with the
They're
minutes, thank you.
combined minutes, actually.
They are
So
combined.
we
They-
don't even have to approve them next time.
Correct, they look
I
fine.
wondered if maybe we were going to fight about it the next meeting.
We can if you want.
Just for kicks?
Yeah.
No, they look
No, you're
good,
good.
thank you.
They're fine.
Okay, now moving on, the Wayne Elementary Playground.
So we'll ask the Wayne contingency to come on up to the front here.
Ms. Sewell, you're gonna come up too? You're just gonna leave it to Brock, or?
Yeah, I'm okay.
So Brock is going to take the lead, and they'd like to inform us regarding an elementary playground at Wayne.
Yeah, thank
Brock,
you.
it's all you.
I put together a little presentation. If Mark, if you just use that down arrow, that first screen right there is actually the first design. If you actually scroll back up, that's the design of the new playground based from the vendor that we're looking at. So you can see the potential that we're looking at, hopefully maybe for the fall of the next school year. But if you want to go ahead and scroll down, thank you. So right now we're looking at the secondary playground at Wayne Elementary. Currently it's dated back to 1980, so it's 30 plus years old. It does not, it is outdated, and it really lacks student engagement. Unfortunately, it's come to a point where it is basically used as a hangout for about 10 to 12 kids at recess. The mulch gets used, kids love to run around the playground, but nobody's actually using it. It's just outdated and doesn't engage the students. And it's also not easily accessible for students with disabilities.
And also, just a side note, sorry, I'm Nancy, I work with Brock. Something out on the playground broke today, I didn't get quite what it was, but I think it was near the blue slide, which we had replaced. I texted Vaughn just to find out what it was, I'm not exactly sure, but we're working on that. So I just thought that was kind of timely.
This picture, I think, is one I wanted to draw your attention to, and I think everyone has it in front of them. This is the layout from the vendor we're looking at, and I'll talk more about the vendor in a few minutes, but if you draw your attention to the top right corner to the left of the RH5 block, that's going to show all of our ADA accessibility points for this design. That was a big deal for us when we were meeting with vendors. We wanted to make sure that it was ADA compliant. We do have students with needs. We do have a student in a wheelchair. And we wanted to make sure that this playground was at least accessible. So if you look at that, see the first one, it says elevated. What those numbers represent is there are 13 accessible elevated entry points that are ADA compliant. The next one says accessible. The law is that there needs to be 7 accessible points, and we're going to have 8 with the design that we're presenting. We do not have ramp accessibility on this playground. That is going to be for a more interconnected plan that way exceeds a budget that we would ever be able to afford. But what we do have there is ground accessibility. The law requires 4 accessible ground points, and this design will cover 7. And then the last topic there, types, that represents just the different uses of the playground. It could be used for social situations, educational situations, and this design meets 3 of the 3 requirements that would be set out. So when we were moving with our design, this was a big point for us. So I was really excited that we were able to get these numbers and actually exceed the recommendations that are set in place for ADA compliance. If you want to keep scrolling, this is the vendor price point. And like I said, I'll talk more about the vendor in the next next slide there. But if you're looking at this, what the plan is moving forward is our PTO has agreed to pay for the equipment. Through fundraising and all of this, we're going to be able, through the PTO, to actually support the entire cost of the equipment, but not the cost of the installation. And so really what we're hopeful is that we could get onto the board agenda to have the installation cost covered by the district. And if you look there, it's going to be $24,910. And that was a hopeful point that we were trying to get onto the board so that could maybe be approved to move forward with this project. And excuse me?
Is there some something about it, because our budget gets approved in May, but you need it done quicker than that so you can get the guaranteed.
Having talked to the vendor, he said if he could know by the end of April, it would ensure a calendar date for us for summer installation. Because of the manufacturing, I think the stuff is manufactured in California, to get it manufactured, shipped, and get a date for installation. He was hopeful for April. Having said that, it wasn't a hard deadline.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
but I
just
think-
for the company themselves. That's what they were, to ensure more. Because he's, like he said, everybody wants their playgrounds built in the summer.
Yeah, I don't think that should be an issue. Michelle will have some ideas about that.
We actually met just to kind of go over what timing would look like.
If you don't
that
sit
was-
up here, people can't hear on the
I'm
video. Sorry.
And I don't turn around.
Sorry.
Thanks. Thank you for raising that point because we started talking about it in September with our PTO and tried
Rachel
to.
raised it to me, actually.
Yes, Rachel did. And so we've been trying to dot our i's and cross our t's if this was something that the district would partner with us, that we had a timeline, that we had the understanding of how the PTO and the treasurers met with Michelle, just to make sure that if it could go forward, that we would be able to do that.
So we just want to point out one thing. I'm looking at the price quotation, and the installation is $24,910. If you look down at the very bottom where there's notes, it says it's subject to prevailing wage act. That pricing assumes it. It's less than $25,000, so it should not be subject to prevailing wage. So that installation cost should actually be less than this amount. And Brock, you and I can talk, and I'm happy to reach out to the vendor to point that out, or Mark can do the same. So I just wanted to point that out because I'm under the assumption that this amount should be less. In the event that the committee wanted to commit to this project and you wanted to be able to give permission to this group to move forward, that you'll cover the installation, my suggestion would be that at the March or the April meeting, you do a transfer from the capital reserve fund balance in Fund 10, and you move it directly over. That will specifically earmark those funds for the installation of this playground. They won't be able to be reassigned. So they will have the commitment that they can move forward, and that should be enough time for them to get it done. I think it is on the capital plan. If you've taken a look at the capital plan, if you look under Wayne Elementary in 1920, there is $25,000 for playground. That is to cover this installation. That would then be removed
Yeah.
once the transfer is approved.
Yeah, I'd personally like to get it on in March so that you guys can move forward this fast and get in line
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
Wonderful, thank you.
That's my preference. Yeah.
So, thank you for bringing this forward. 40-year-old equipment sounds like it's probably time for a
I
change.
used it. When I went to Wayne.
That was good enough for you, but
Good enough for me.
Only because Lucy mentioned, the notion of ramps and what it looks like to access equipment when you're using a wheelchair. Walk me again what it means that we're not going to be ramp accessible?
Yeah.
So what does that mean practically speaking?
On a ramp accessible playground, they're basically, all the pieces are interconnected through a walkway that starts off as a ramp. And so it becomes a very elaborate, a very large project that would probably almost double the price of this playground. So what we're looking at is trying to find that balance, because we do have a wheelchair-bound student, is that we are actually going to be putting in two separate pieces of equipment. Part of this playground is an inclusive merry-go-round, so that that student would be able to access some of the equipment based on her own needs. And we're actually going to be including a special swing on the primary playground as a separate thing, so that way that the accessibility is available for that student as well.
And what about access to the playground itself?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have access to the playground?
Yes, absolutely.
How do we access this playground if you're, I can't picture where this one is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you're
back
looking at the
fields.
building, it would be to the back right. So the basketball courts, and then there's a ramp that goes up, and it sits
is
right
a
up there by
ramp.
the
Oh, in the
soccer
back, on the
field.
back on the right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, got it.
Yep.
And it's all accessible to the, and what would
There's a
the,
paved pathway.
There's
Yeah,
a
absolutely. It's a
paved
paved pathway. Yeah, it's a macadam path. Mhm.
and what's the surface of this playground?
Right now, it's mulch, and
What's planned to be?
it would remain mulch.
Are we, is mulch still the safest or the best surface to be using nowadays? I don't know.
I actually talked to the vendor about that. Actually, the vendor is River Valley, who is our mulch supplier. And they were saying that for cost effectiveness and safety, mulch is the best. When you start looking at your rubber, it is incrementally larger price.
Larger price, but is it incrementally safer? I don't know what the latest stuff is about that.
I don't believe so.
And then you get that stuff everywhere.
Well,
Gets in your
and is
shoes,
the mulch
palms.
terribly useful? I mean, I'm worried about trying to get in a wheelchair easily over mulch for a student to play. I mean, if we're already saying parts of this playground are accessible but not wheelchair accessible, I mean,
I
so,
guess that would depend on the wheels on the wheelchair.
And actually,
It
our
comes
student
down
in
to each
wheelchair,
wheelchair.
it's actually, it actually is equipped with like all-terrain wheels. It's more of a jogger, stroller type.
so this student is
apparatus.
able to use the area generally on the mulch currently.
They would be fine to be on that.
So can you tell us, like, what areas of this, so you said the merry-go-round might be accessible to someone on a wheelchair. What other areas would actually be accessible to someone on a wheelchair?
Actually, I put a bunch of pictures of the design in here. There's
Okay.
a lot of smaller platforms, but I don't want to speak too much about the one particular student, just out
No,
of
no,
respect for
but
that
we could
student.
end up with 5 or 10 or more in other
Absolutely,
years, so we
yeah.
don't want to be thinking about a
So
single
I
student.
think what the needs that we're looking at were based kind of on what is in front of us right now. And
Okay.
the merry-go-round is going to be the extent to which, and a swing is going to be the extent to which our student of needs is going to be able to access any of the equipment.
So when we say it's accessible,
It means it's a low enough grade for a student to step up onto it. If you
Okay.
want to keep, you can keep scrolling down. These are just various pictures of the layout. And so you can see to the left, all the small balance beams that are going to be very low to the ground, accessible through a step up. There's also a lot of physical challenge, which was one of the aspects we were looking for. We wanted to increase students' physical capabilities, kind of build some confidence, some creativity, a lot of social aspects for team building and cooperation.
Super, so you need from us
The
a
installation.
commitment.
Yeah, the commitment to move the funds in the next business meeting, right?
That would be my recommendation, that we put a transfer over to the Capital Reserve Fund on the board agenda for approval, and then those funds would be committed specifically for the installation. And I'll work with Brock to make sure that this installation price is correct.
So that they can sign the contract and get a date for the install.
Great.
Great.
So,
You would like that on the March board meeting, correct?
Yes, please,
Yeah.
if it's good
yes,
with you
oh,
guys.
absolutely. Yep. Let's let kids play. I mean,
Thank you.
that's not a hard one.
Just like to thank you, all
Yeah,
of you
thank
for
you
your
all.
work, but
Yeah,
also
thanks,
the
guys.
PTO.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know it's
Yeah,
been
thank
a
you.
collaboration and
That was
Unbelievably
amazing.
generous.
unbelievable
Yeah.
what the PTO is putting forward to work with us.
Are you guys here for that too? Yeah, good job.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I see
think
Bridget and Serena here and Rachel.
Unbelievable
Good job,
generosity
guys.
and commitment, so thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your partnership. Thank you.
Thanks. All right,
Staples.
next
Ooh,
item,
that's easy.
the right at school contract.
He's going to be our clicker. Or unless, we have a clicker, I forgot.
Okay, you'll be my fallback.
Hello, Mr. Obarczyk, how are you?
How are you? Good evening. Thank you for having us at the facilities meeting tonight. We are here to present, I'm here to present Julie Lyons, who is the Senior Director of School Partnerships with Right at School. And what this is a program that encompasses both not just before and after care services, but as well as helping to, with the logistics of PTO elementary clubs. So it's an all-in-one kind of program. We have just, it was a sort of an exploration of the club piece that led us into the before and after care and tying the whole program together. So I'm going to, at this point, turn the program over to Julie and let her explain what Right at School means, is all about.
Good evening. Is this on? Can you
It
hear-
is.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, members of the board, for having me. It's good to see you. I thought I would start by talking a little bit about the importance of after school. Elementary school children are awake for 5,000 hours a year, and they are in your schools for 1,000 of those hours. That is a lot to pack in 20% of their waking hours. So what are they doing the other 80% of their waking hours? When we started adding up the hours of before school, after school, summer camps, and school breaks, we found that we at Right at School have them for another 1,000 hours. So how could we make those 1,000 hours enriching, engaging, to help the success of students' lives and those children in your schools? And the research backs this up. Students in high-quality programs thrive, and the key is high-quality programs. I'm not talking babysitting programs or latchkey programs. I'm really talking about programs that are engaging and enriching children. They have better academic performance, better health, and decreased achievement gap. And that is really why we started Right at School in 2011. And so many of these programs fall short. Most of them don't have a curriculum. They really are babysitting. Children don't want to go to these programs. They're boring. It's not fun. They want to go home like their friends do. And then the staff, they're well-meaning, good people, but they're undertrained. And sometimes they don't show up for work, which leads to inadequate supervision and tons of wait lists and inflexibility for families that need 5 days of care. Sometimes there are families that need 1 to 2 days, and they're locked into that 5-day price. And wait lists, huge. To have a program on site at your school with wait lists is disheartening for families who need childcare before and after school. And then for self-operated programs, it really can take time out of superintendent's days. It's concentrate on that 9 to 3, and Right at School is there for you when the kids aren't in school. Back in 2011, our CEO, Dr. Mark Rothschild, walked into his kindergartner's after-school program, saw her eating a bag of Doritos and watching TV, and he said, "This is enough. What can we do?" So we started Right at School in 2011 to inspire a love of learning, support schools, and give parents a peace of mind, and we are currently doing that from coast to coast with about 35,000 children a day. We're right next door in Lower Merion. And what really makes Right at School special is our disguised learning. At 3 o'clock, I don't know any child that wants to hear who wants to learn more. So we're doing disguised learning where they're having fun, social emotional learning, critical thinking. It's inquiry-based and experiential learning. Here they're building Roman aqueducts. I'd be happy to share more curriculum with you. This is one part of our program. And this is a daily schedule. I'm not going to go through it all, but just know that it's an ebb and a flow of what an after-school program looks like. So a town hall to get them excited about the program, talk about the day. We're providing them with a snack and moving into a quick fit so we can move their bodies, because then we're moving into the most important part of the day, which is homework. We have surveyed families across the nation. The number one thing parents want besides their child safe and secure is for their homework to be complete when they go home. So at 6 o'clock, 6:30, they can have family time and sit down for dinner. I'm one of those parents. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, and doing homework with my children, I've pulled my hair out doing it, especially with math these days. Singapore math to be example. I think you guys have that too. Yes, okay, so our triple play curriculum choice is what you saw on that slide before, and that is really 2-week thematic units. A child can go from 1 day all the way up to 5 days and get the same meat in a program, and the key is that the children are having fun. We take care of everything, so there's no cost to the school district. We do the hiring, the background checks, the training, payment, curriculum, safety plans. We follow all of the plans that your elementary schools will follow. We have a revenue share, and we have proposed right now to offer 5% revenue share back to the district from our Right Club program, which is the after-school program, and then 3% to go back to scholarships. You can decide how you want that. So it could be 8% scholarships, it could be 8% revenue share. That is up to the district to decide how that money will be paid twice a year to the district. And then this is really showing you all of the programs that Right at School can offer. So not only do we do before school and after school, we would love to partner with your PTO groups and manage all of the elective enrichment programs. That is all by choice. So you get to decide on this wheel or our menu of things you want. We do summer camp, winter break camp, spring break camp. We are launching our first summer camp in Lower Merion this summer, which is quite exciting for Right at School and the children in Lower Merion. And we will align and support district objectives. So like I said, you do math and focus. We want to train our educators how to work with your children in your community on math homework. So those parents will have their children at 6 o'clock and not have to pull their hair out like I do. What are you guys doing currently for your school behavior system? We follow that. We train our staff. And we hire local, fantastic local educators. So you may have current educators in your programs now that you love and you would love Right at School to hire. Fabulous. We want to interview them. If they meet and exceed all the standards that we expect from the staff that are currently working in our programs, then we would love to hire them. We will interview them first. We pay about 5 to 10% above the market, and we have the highest retention of employees in the industry, which is pretty rare in part-time jobs. And we love to hire school aides and paraprofessionals. If you have paraprofessionals in your classrooms that want more hours and unfortunately you can't give it to them, we would love it. The price of entry is that you have to love children, and that is number one. Is that our educators love to work with children. You can have a great program, but it's all about the staff and how they're trained. This is what differentiates Right at School from most of our competitors, is the training and the time we are putting into building them up to be great educators in after school. They start with online training, and then they move into on-site training, which we do at all of your elementary schools before the school year starts. And it doesn't end there. We have ongoing coaching and support and professional development as the year goes on. When an educator starts in your building in September, they're great. By January, they better be amazing, and by the end of the school year, they better be perfect. And we are coming into your schools, checking to make sure that we are delivering what I'm sitting here telling you right now. 97%, actually, that's wrong. It's 99% of our staff felt effective and confident in their abilities 30 days into their role. So we survey our staff twice a year to find out how they feel. Are they feeling supported? We survey our families twice a year, and we survey our administrators twice a year. It is really ongoing to get feedback to improve our programs because they can never be perfect. We have to keep striving for perfection. And we're passionate about including children with diverse needs. Really important for us that we are an inclusive program, so we work closely with families and the school administrators to determine if children or if it's an appropriate program for children. We have a lot of children in kindergarten and first grade who unfortunately are pre-diagnosed. We work with the families on how to incorporate them into the program so they feel safe and comfortable. We have extra training. A part of that online training is really on behavior management and how to work with children with special needs. If children have an IEP during the school day with an aide, they have to have an aide in the after-school program. So just so you know that, I'm not quite sure how that is working right now with your current provider. And then we will offer significant discounts. Not only are we lowering the price of the current program, because as we started looking around the area, we realized it was a little bit more expensive than it should be, especially with the 1 and 2 day prices, which were the same across the board. So you have a lot of families that may need just 1 or 2 days, so we had to drop those prices. But all 5 days will be dropped. We also have a 10% sibling discount, 10% military discount, 20% discount for free and reduced families, and then a 50% employee discount. We will also take Pennsylvania state subsidy and military child care aware. Everything is done online. So this is truly hands-off for the school district, for the principals. We are managing it all. So parents will go on to our online portal. They would look up for Radnor School District. They would pick the school. If they went to Wayne, they'd click on it, and then they would do the registration there. There is no long-term commitment. Parents can add days, drop out, come back, rolling admission all year long. And then our local team will become part of the fabric of your district. So each school district has a local area manager and all locally hired staff at each school with a program director on each site, so on and so forth. We are really, our goal is to become a part of the fabric of your community, that if you perceive us as a vendor, we probably are not a good fit for your school district. We want to become a part of your family. And by doing that, we partner with your PTOs to offer free babysitting. We will host your back to school night, your curriculum nights. We attend all your board meetings, so you will see us often. Intentional partnership really makes all the difference, and it's truly between the parents, the schools, and Right at School. And now, if you have any questions. Why are you laughing?
After a couple of our meetings, you're going to run away.
That is so.
I know.
That is so not.
I'm kidding.
No,
We've gotten
not
much
true.
better
We
in
are-
the last couple of
Yeah.
I was like, what's so funny? Was it me?
No, it's good. I do have a question. Only because
Before I got here, it was really bad.
Okay.
He's fixed everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'll open the floor to questions
Please.
for you guys.
I only because I happen to notice that your program says middle school after school. Do we have a middle school after school program?
You do not right now.
Do we have a community that wants that? I have no idea.
So we could survey.
survey.
We could survey families.
I have no idea.
Yeah, there is none now, but we survey twice a year, especially, with us hopefully partnering also with the PTOs to offer electives. We want to survey families to find out, what do they want? Do they want anything in addition to what's currently out there or not? And we
Right,
can
no,
find
I-
out if your 6th to 8th graders want it. We tend
Oh,
to.
no. The 6th and 8th graders probably don't want it. Do the parents?
Parents.
Of the 6th
No,
and 8th graders
yes,
I was going
but.
to say, in the Rite Aid and the
You're right, I
pizza
should have
shops
said,
really don't
do the
want it.
parents want it? We typically see at that age, parents don't want to pay for it if their kids can go home alone.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Or
But
hang out at
the
Wayne's
enrichment
and
programs are potentially a possibility.
absolutely.
Great, okay. I'm going to defer 99% of my questions to Sarah,
Hi, Sarah.
who has utilized this. I didn't utilize these services when my kids were here.
Okay.
We did when my kids were
Did you?
younger, but I forgot to ask my wife.
No, we used them for years. So I guess I had a bunch of questions, but you answered a lot of them as we went through,
Great.
so I want to make sure I don't make you repeat things. So I guess the first one, because it's going to be on the minds of everyone in the community, if we were to change our school start times, you could accommodate elementary school ending earlier than it does on a regular basis currently?
Yes, so we're amenable to school changes. We work in a district in Oklahoma where they now go to 4-day school week. So we're actually providing care on Fridays all day. So you tell us what you need, and we are your partner to make that happen.
Okay, and is the same true for before care? I know I've seen 7, 7:30, and 6:30 and
Yes.
different things here.
You decide. So
Okay.
you can say, we want our programs to start at 6 a.m., we'll be here at 6 a.m. So it really depends on what you need.
Okay.
We have programs also running till 6:30 p.m. So
Okay.
if that's also a need, we can certainly do that.
Okay. You mentioned that students who have an aide during the school day as part of an IEP will be required to have one after school for the
Yes.
program. Who's going to pay for that?
The parent.
Parent has to pay for that,
Absolutely. I wish it could be another way. We don't have that figured out quite yet. Some districts can use that scholarship or revenue share to
Yeah,
pay for
I
it.
thought of that. Okay.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're just not equipped to do 1-to-1. Our ratio
I
in
understand
Pennsylvania is 1-to-12.
That was mine. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, 1 to 12. 's the-
So we're a licensed program.
Okay.
We'll follow, Pennsylvania state licensing, also with your insurance, all that, if that comes next about. We follow,
You said you're in Lower Merion now?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been there?
it's our first year, we have about 700 kids in the program. It's a very large program.
Have
Yeah,
you
it's
been
big.
in any other schools around that?
We're in Ridley, and we're currently in conversation with 3 other school districts, but I won't talk about that.
So Anthony, have you surveyed others, or have you spoken to other districts that have rights at school?
So yes, I spoke with Lower Merion, and I spoke to a couple of the other ones that are in other parts of the country.
Okay.
So, but they weren't obviously, apples to apples in regards to what we're doing, but Lower Merion was the closest in regards to how they run their programs and everything.
Okay.
And very successful based on, what they shared. I
Okay.
spoke with both administrators and a couple of the teachers who are involved in the programs.
Okay.
Now,
No,
when you
that's
say you run the after-school clubs, that the teachers currently do that, a lot
No,
of
the
the
PTO,
after-schools.
well, the teachers may actually be the provider, but the PTO oversees a lot of that.
I'm 4 years
yeah.
out of it now, but,
The PTOs hire the
yeah,
teachers.
so
we would-
what happens to
We would
the-
continue to do that.
Okay, so I just didn't want to,
So we're just-
hire you guys and then tell the teachers like, hey,
No, and we
Tough
want
luck.
them. Those are the best-selling classes, right? Parents are like, I want my child to take cooking with Mr. Miller.
yeah,
But yeah, so we'll work with the teachers.
be a quick class. You call
Well,
Domino's.
but here's
Boiling
the
water.
key question, not will you just hire the teachers, I guess the question is also, can they
Would we-
expect that the pay will be comparable or
So,
better than what they're getting from
the
I saw
way-
your wages tend to be higher, but I think the
Yeah,
teachers are
so
gonna.
the teachers will determine that. So a teacher would decide, I want to continue doing the cooking class. They determine the price of the class. We don't determine that. So any outside vendor that we bring in, whether it's a mad science in the community or a Lego robotics class or a teacher in the school, they can say, I want to charge $20 a class
Okay.
per child per trimester. So they actually get the money minus some fees, which I will send like a separate document. If we're partnering with the PTO on that, that would go signed through them, or if it's with the district, it would be signed through them. So the fees come off the top of it, and it's about 20% that we're adding on top of it for public relations, for marketing, for registration, and then the teachers get the rest of the money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of tricky to explain. We don't determine any of the pricing.
So I don't know how that structure works now. The PTO has no overhead, but so there'd be an overhead cost to administer the after-school programs.
It's not really an overhead. It's, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say it's an overhead. It's just added on top of the cost of the program for us to
Right.
manage it. Yeah.
Correct. So a
Yeah.
teacher is charging
Yeah,
a
it's
course
administrative fee.
that's 150, you know, they want to get 150, so you'll charge 180, or you'll charge 150 and the teacher gets 120?
Right. So they will decide how that works.
Okay. And you'll work,
The
and then
P-
you
the
issue them
PTO works-
1099s or whatever?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
But what's going to happen is either the teachers are going to make less or the parents are going to pay more.
And it's really takes the PTO, not that we want the PTO out of it, but now the PTO doesn't have to stay after school and make sure the kids get from point A to point B. Right? So now the liability, the insurance, the background checks all falls on right at school. That we ensure that everyone that's coming in your school has those.
And so there's two things we're talking about here. So we're talking about before school and after school care, and then we're also talking about these clubs. So right now we're
Exactly.
talking about clubs. We currently have our PTOs at our 3 elementary buildings organize clubs. The parents volunteer to organize it, is my understanding, and then they hire the teachers to actually teach and instruct the club. Who sets the price right now? Does the PTO set the price or the teacher set the price? How are that price established right now?
PTO sets the price at this time.
And to be fair, sometimes the price that the PTO charges more than covers the cost of the person providing the services. I mean, I've been
Correct.
involved in certain
They're-
clubs, so I
yeah,
know
the
that
goal-
sometimes the PTO is making a little extra money and sometimes they're eating the part of the cost. but it's
Correct. The
usually
goal
the-
of the PTOs is, and do I have anyone here still?
Yeah, there's
You know,
two-
it's not.
two-
Goal is to
Generally, it's to
about
break
break even.
even. It's not a goal of, it's not a moneymaker for the PTOs.
Well-
The overall goal is to make a break even. So this would add a little bit more, but again, it's taken away that responsibility, the promoting, the registration, and everything else. So it's
How do they?
a
Right,
way,
it's
a
a
way
savings of a lot of volunteer time.
Exactly.
What's the PTO reaction? Is that what you're going to ask? Yeah. What do our PTOs think about the club aspect and having?
Generally, those
school?
that I spoke to were okay with it. I mean, I don't want to, I mean,
I'm gonna put you on the
I
spot.
did speak to each school and everything, and, Ethan is still one that they're still trying to determine whether this is the best fit for them, because they just like to be very hands-on with their club. It's not about anything more than that, but Radnor and Wayne were very much in favor of turning over that type of
Yeah, I just had
piece
vague
of the
memories
club.
from years ago.
'Cause
of,
it
like,
is-
what a pain it was to get enough volunteers.
There's a lot of requirements to it. There's a lot of pieces,
Well, and it's
moving
gotten
pieces
worse
to
over
the,
the
and
years.
it has with the clearances and everything.
It's a
become
full-time,
more.
unpaid job.
Yeah.
It truly
No,
is.
PTO.
And if Ethan didn't want to partner for the for the electives, they don't have to. It's not required.
Okay. So, and this is kind of getting down into the nitty gritty, but as a mom who had to deal with this, so I'm assuming you'll work with the district in terms of absences. One of the things it says here is if anybody doesn't show up, you'll call home. And my worst nightmare as a parent is that people are trying to get me at work about my kid, especially if you could have gotten the information from somebody else. So I'm assuming you actually, for aftercare, would ask the district.
There was a whole study done on work productivity for parents after 3 p.m. and it totally goes down because we start to worry about our children. Did they get to where they need to be? We have a whole plan in place. So if someone doesn't show up for the program, we're going right to the school office.
Okay.
We're doing an all call. And it's like, oh, Julie went home on the bus today, or Julie got picked up, she was sick. You are the last resort to call, yes, until we have done everything
That's what I
at the
wanted to-
school.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And we have each school administrator gets an updated attendance list every day of who's coming to the program. Our program director is there 45 minutes early every day, checking in the school office to get attendance lists to say, did someone go home sick today, checking, cross-matching. Same with the electives. So it's, the program manager has a big job within your school. We're very close with your maintenance. We're close with the teachers and the lunchroom supervision, because if we're in the cafeterias, we take it seriously.
So you mentioned we have there would be a dedicated area manager. So it's not as if there would be someone here who's covering Radnor and LM.
No.
We have our own.
Yes.
Okay, so to give you a little background, I used to work for a company that provided food and facility services in the K-12 setting.
Yeah.
So, no offense, I'm always very skeptical because
That's
I've
okay.
seen it both sides.
I
So I know exactly where where the bodies are hidden and how to kind of save the money on these things.
So an area manager may be shared, so typically an area manager has 6 to 8 schools. So we're talking 3 elementary schools here. We'd have to look at enrollments. You won't be shared with Lower Merion though, because they have a dedicated area manager because it's a very large program.
Okay.
So I can't say if we had a school district next door that would open, it would be a shared area manager. I can't tell you for sure that wouldn't happen. But right now, your enrollment numbers, you're averaging at about 150 kids across the district in before and after school. We think those numbers are going to
Is
grow.
that really all?
That seems small.
You've got to be kidding me.
About 50,
Well, we know there's a space,
Well, I mean-
or
About 50
a
each at-
staff constraint.
Yeah.
about 50 each at Wayne and Radnor, and about 40 at Ithan.
And we believe this will grow. When we started looking at the district and the amount of enrollment of children in each school, we were projecting about 80 to 90 per school. So we'll see.
Okay.
When we were in Lower Merion, we grew from, I think it was 400 kids to 700 kids.
Okay.
And when you have a different program, sometimes families are choosing to send their children other places, and now maybe they'll keep them at school.
Okay. Have you had a chance to tour our facilities, and do you have any concerns about, the program looks great. To tell the public, in addition to what was here, we
Yeah.
got a separate set of email with a proposal and an explanation of the real detail about the different types of programs you offer. But they were in all kinds of different settings, and at Radnor Elementary, you've pretty much got the cafeteria, and when the musical's running, you've got the library.
Yes.
So I'm concerned about how you're going to do all the
Sure.
exercise and running around when it's too cold to go outside.
So I will say this, we have about 35,000 children in our programs a day. We do not have a wait list anywhere across the nation. We work in very urban school districts, New York City, Chicago, and then very suburban school districts. We manage with the space we have available, and it's a rollaway program. So if we had 100 kids in a cafeteria and all of a sudden we were moved, we'd have to make do, whether we're going outside or we're going to a gym or a classroom or a library or a multi-purpose room. We figure it out. And being in contact with the school secretary or the principal to find out ahead of time, or if it's you got to move on a dime, we do it. So I'm less concerned about that, and I've heard some of the concerns about space.
Well, and like at Ithan, it's 2 classrooms conjoined, I think, in the trailer. It's not even a big cafeteria. But the cafeteria then has noise issues, if you're trying to get some kids doing homework and other kids exercising.
And we take it outside when we can,
Okay.
always. That's, get kids out, fresh air, moving their bodies. It's very important in our program.
Okay. The one last thing, and there's a junior educator program mentioned in your proposal, and I'm not sure the middle school students are all that interested in it, but it was for grades 5 through 8. So my question is, are the 5th graders going to feel too old for this program?
No. So we started that in a lot of our urban school districts. The programs are pre-K to 8th grade. So we started having 4th to 8th graders become junior educators, and we really took that off the camping model. And it's really to have the children say they want to do it. And then they get to interview for the job. So they're learning how to do life skills, public speaking. They actually fill out an application, and they become mini educators. They wear a badge every day. They help lead our town hall. They help with snack. They help with homework after, of course, their homework is done. The children love it. It is the 4th graders are begging to do it, and we don't accept everyone. They have to show these leadership skills. The program is very much so designed K to 8, and they're differentiated activities depending on the age.
Okay. Last thing, I swear.
Like Columbo. Oh, one more thing.
That's okay.
Your program,
appreciate it.
you also talked about being able to offer preschool. I'm assuming you don't have your own preschool facility, though, or you do?
We
So it's
don't,
about,
yeah.
we'd have to find the space, which we don't have.
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
We're actually, for half-day kindergarten Lower Merion, we have rented a space. So it's not to say that it's not something we can't do. Would not happen for the school year.
Where's the space for the half-day kindergarten at Lower Merion?
Beth David?
Okay.
You're at Beth Dave.
Exactly.
I work next door.
Oh, yeah.
Do you
I
work
hope
in,
that's public.
Giant.
Now it is.
Does your company work in Wilmette or Winnetka or any of the?
Yes.
I mean, I lived in Evanston. I was just curious.
So we're-
that population is very similar to
Our
here.
office
it's
is
in
in Evanston, and we're
Yeah.
in all the Evanston schools.
Okay.
Yes.
But I mean, the clientele of Winnetka and Wilmette is
Yes.
what you're dealing with here, so in terms of the quality of your enrichment programs and
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
Just,
I'm
okay.
from Chicago, so yeah.
There you go. I wondered about that. That would speak to the kind of the caliber of what parents are probably looking for in some of these enrichment things. All right, thank
And
you.
we do our research to, I know about your community, so
Okay.
that's part of being a partner, right? Is knowing who you're partnering with.
Thank you.
So you guys are looking for, it's a 1 year, is that what the contract said, 1 year?
So we don't have long-term contracts. Our agreement is just, it rolls over unless you don't want it to. I mean, unless you say
Right.
this isn't working out. But if you're not happy with us in your schools, you can say, bye-bye.
Okay.
So the only concern I
happen.
had in the contract, sorry, I read that too.
It's like you went to law school or something.
Sorry.
So what do you do for a living?
I am actually a lawyer.
I know.
Contract lawyer.
No, the only concern I had was that, and I'm sure it's just your form, and I know these things are negotiable, was that you would have a right to terminate for convenience on 90 days. And I don't think that we as a district should put our parents in a position of having
Right, 3
day
month, like, hey.
before or after care suddenly disappear on 90 days' notice.
Sure.
So that's the one thing I would say would give me a lot of pause.
Are you sure? Did it say anything about if like enrollment fell under 10 or something? No? Okay.
No, I'm sure it's just your form. Again,
Yeah,
I've done these
I'll
before.
check into it. I am not a lawyer.
So,
And Mr. Diasio is
I was just
also
gonna say.
reviewing the agreement as well.
I'm sure he is,
Yeah.
but that's just from as a
Yeah, we just
parent,
don't
that
want-
would upset me.
Yeah, in
Absolutely.
January, I'd be like, hey, by the way, at the end of March.
Right.
Yeah.
so administration, Ken, do you want to weigh in, or what you guys are looking for? I mean,
Well, we now are at a point, I think it's Tony, and thank you, Julie, thank you
Thank
for
you
coming
very
to the
much.
presentation, and appreciate you joining us tonight. The exploration into this really moved quickly for us, too. It was something that we started to look at. We were intrigued by it. We were intrigued, by their success at other districts and what they brought from an enrichment standpoint and from opportunities for the kids after school. And as we moved forward, all of a sudden, we started to see that we're in the sweet spot, though, of the timing of the year, that if this is something we want to do, timing is of the essence.
Correct.
So a decision either this month or next month is what's going to, help us move forward. Obviously, a decision this month is better than a decision next month, but at the same time, this is our first time we're having the opportunity to, ask questions and move forward with it. I don't know, maybe Julie, you could respond. I mean, what are the challenges between this month or next month
Sure.
with an approval,
So.
if we go that direction?
Yes, if you go that direction, I do stress next month. And the reason why I stress next month is that we spend all of spring,
You mean this month.
March, oh yeah.
We just had a conversation there. That's why.
March, to go this month, because we are spending now all the time marketing, getting parents excited, attending your end of the year events, interviewing current staff that work in the program, hosting a parent forum. So what would happen if you decide to partner with us and you decide this month, we would immediately send out a date for a parent forum, meet the parents, we'd provide free babysitting that night, and I'd be there talking about the program and the benefits and what's changing, what's not changing. And then if we're moving forth with the PTO on the clubs, and we start now. So the reason why this month is really important is that licensing. So we start the very next day and submit everything to the state. And so we have very good relationships here in Pennsylvania for licensing, but it's important that we have that time period to get everything in and be here on the first day of school.
Tony, Dr. Robarczyk has really done a great job of thoroughly
you.
investigating all the different components, spending time, talking to all of our PTO presidents about the program, and also spending time working with all our principals about it as well and to understand their, concerns as well. So from an administrative perspective, I mean, we feel like we have, thoroughly looked at this and vetted it, but at the same time, if there's, other additional board questions, that's the opportunity tonight, or we can also discuss between now and the business meeting, if there's other questions could be raised. But, ideally, it would be, the timing would be great now. If
And
this is
I'm
something
back
that-
the next 2 weeks in other school districts in this area. So if you want me to come back and if you have another curriculum meeting or the next, committee meeting, I'm happy to come back and answer more
You're
questions.
based out of,
Well,
Haven't still.
you want to know where?
Because you.
I was in Chicago.
I was gonna say,
moved.
you sound.
I moved to Cherry Hill,
Okay.
and then a year ago I moved to Minneapolis. But we will be back here very soon.
So any excuse to escape the snow.
Right? My husband's from Buffalo, New York, so it's like we can't get away
forget
from it.
about Yeah, I was gonna say that we should move it forward to this month's business meeting because knowing us, there might be a bunch of follow-up questions, so if we aim for April, it might.
Or aim for March.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we say April, you know, it'll probably end up being May after all the relitigation and other questions, but I'm
Stop, we're
saying
not
if we go
doing-
March.
No, but you're saying move March.
Yeah, I'm saying move it on to, when's the business meeting? 2 weeks?
March
2 weeks,
23rd.
yeah.
So,
Six.
Tony, do you feel like you got your questions
I
answered?
got my questions answered.
Okay,
I
all
don't,
right.
I'm not going to relitigate at the
Okay.
board meeting. That's
Yeah,
one,
no,
I'm
no,
good
no.
about
This
that, I
was great,
promise.
and Tony, your
600 people.
email this weekend was really helpful, you know, sending out all that information over the weekend to the board, so thank you for that. It gave us all that background that I think we needed, and the questions here tonight. I'm
Yeah, I'm
comfortable
comfortable.
supporting this,
Yeah.
if that's what you're looking for, Mike.
Yeah.
And we will go ahead and post the PowerPoint and the agreement, the proposal onto the board docs and everything. We were just kind of in a tight time frame and
Yeah.
didn't get home on Friday, so we didn't want to provide new information over the weekend, so.
I would say, assuming this gets approved at the end of the month, yes, communicating with our parents, I think Sarah indicated this, you know, communication to our parents will be critical. As I said, I didn't do this, but being respectful of this is, you know, their children, they're gonna, really, it's gonna matter who's their provider.
There is nothing more anxiety inducing than telling parents their childcare is going to change.
Well, that's where that
I
was
am that-
and I'm not
hello?
even in it, and I had that anxiety. I said, we're doing
So
what? No.
Not to be presumptuous or put the horse before the car, what is that saying? But I already have a plan in place. I could send you what the next 6 months until the first day of school would look like. I have a letter written that will come from the superintendent. You can change it any way you want. I have a press release. I mean, I have done the due diligence to make this as smooth as possible. I'm here to hold your hand the whole way through, so there are no headaches for you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so
I
much.
love meeting you all, and
Thank you.
he's got my email and phone number if you have any other questions, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Next up is the draft capital plan.
Excuse me, yes, we can, you know, we can finagle.
Who's gonna do the draft over there? I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good evening. You have before you the draft budget. There's several things that I know there's some things that looks like we haven't got things moving as far as long as they have. As we go through this, I'll just point out to you, there's several things here that are really kind of summer projects. So that's the reason why we haven't started them as of yet. Several things are in the process. For example, the exterior LED lighting is an ongoing project. The new vehicles have already been taking place. We have bus replacements that we're looking to move over till, I think, next year, as well as some of the other issues we want to have moved over to next year. We just got back recently a proposal or an evaluation, I guess, from an engineering firm about the sidewalks. So we have a plan now moving forward to take care of the sidewalks and some of the paving. I have reached out to the township engineer. He and I have had a couple different discussions about maybe not this year, but in the future, projects that we have that they might also have with concrete and paving. Maybe we could do it jointly to save some money moving forward. I'm not sure that we can actually get that done for this year because we are kind of running a little bit late since I've been sitting around for the past 5 weeks not doing anything, so.
Yeah.
But as you go through the various lists of things like that, the roofs, we're gonna push back a year until next year. We have roofing consultants looking over things at Ithan as well as the high school, trying to get a better sense of what needs to be done. You have many roofing issues. We're addressing some of the middle school today. We had a contractor in, but again, that wouldn't necessarily be capital. These would be major redos of major sections of roofs. I'm putting together a plan in place so that we can redo the roofs over a 10-year period.
Yeah, are you looking at Sulpizio's roof and Ithan's roof? I'm just gonna comment, that thing is always, I mean, my gosh, since I did not go to Ithan, but when I used to go down there, that thing's always been leaking. It's amazing to me.
So Sulpizio roof is not on the list at this point in time. However, Ithan is, and the high school are the two worst ones that you have. The middle school roof is only about, I guess, what, 2001, was it? I mean, you guys had that built, so 17 years old. So we have a couple issues up there that are not warranty issues that they're working through. Radnor Elementary has one small leak that we're working through. That's not a warranty issue. The flat roofs are inherently a problem.
I'm at the top floor of a flat-roofed building, and yeah, it floods all the time.
Sure.
But that's because our landlord stinks. But they're terrible people. But it's, why are we pushing the buses a year?
So one of the things that we found when we started to review this capital plan is that some things were charged to Fund 10 when they were actually budgeted in this fund. So we think what we should do is take the money that we have for buses in the budget here in capital and push it into next year. So that will end up becoming available so that we can pay for the buses. We purchased vans this year, and we were able to pay for them out of the general fund. So that just will free up those dollars.
But it doesn't get it off of our, it doesn't mess up the
It does
replacement
not.
cycle that we have.
What
right
ends up
now.
happening is that the money just becomes available. It's as if there was money left over from a project. And so then we can reallocate it. And what we'll do is we'll reallocate it to the buses that we're going to purchase in 2021. Or
And they're gonna be
1920, I'm sorry.
They're going to be the
Propane?
propane. I want to say natural gas, but yeah, propane. We're still doing that.
We'll work with John, but his preference is to purchase propane.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. There is nothing in this capital plan for Salpizio Gym. Per the lease agreement with the township is responsible for the maintenance of that facility. There's also nothing in this capital plan for the repairs to the Matson Ford Bridge.
Right.
No, the Sulpizio Gym was a joke I whispered to Mike, and he just
Yeah.
repeated it out
Oh,
loud.
okay.
Sorry.
Well, kind of,
I do
because
think,
I mean,
well,
there
I guess
was-
my question is if we were getting a roofer to come in and bid for a bunch of buildings, perhaps we could suggest to the township that they would like to pay for the roof on Sulpizio to be replaced if that's something we think is.
We certainly could include them in that bid package.
Yeah.
So long
And
as they're paying for it.
the sidewalks, are you looking at the sidewalks next to Yankee Field at the high school?
Yes.
Because if we're
Yeah.
going to talk about doing a whole project over that way, I wouldn't want to pour a whole bunch of concrete there
Right.
for sidewalks and then decide, okay, we're moving it over a couple of feet
I think he has it.
or
Yes.
whatnot.
It's not in the original concrete. My mistake, Anki is not, although I will
Okay.
say you have $135,300 set aside for sidewalks. I think we have about $270,000 worth of sidewalks need to be done,
Yeah.
less of Anki, so that's the reason why it'll be a multi-year thing. We did remove.
I just want to make sure that we weren't going to replace the sidewalk that, we might rip up.
No, I have a tendency not to want to do that.
Yeah, I know, which is good. That's the way it should be, because our town does things the other way.
So in the context of the budget discussion that we'll have in April, which we don't have capital in there yet, where's the package of what you're going to recommend to us that we consider for next year specifically? Is it this whole 2.768 million? Or
I'm s-
some other function of it?
I'm still working through that. Some of the things in there, I'm trying to refine some of the numbers, and then we've identified some other things that we want probably to take care
Okay.
of sooner than later. So I don't want to comment on
You're
that
not
at
ready
this
yet?
point. Yeah,
That's fine.
sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no,
because I had a
that's
couple
great.
questions about some projects we've been hearing about, but I presume in the last 5 weeks you've been catching up.
Well, that actually speaks to kind of really more where I was going, is that, you've just come on board. I'm assuming you're kind of getting you're wrapping your head around all the various different things that you see when you're out looking at the facilities and the buildings, and then matching it up to these capital plans that we have here. We've had some suggestions to maybe make some changes to how we present the capital budgets, which I'm sure you're going to start to give some thought to that. So that was going to kind of be my ground question, but I cut to the chase of, do you have a number yet? And the answer is you don't have a number yet. But by the time our budget meeting comes around, you will theoretically have, what you're proposing we need to do for next year. Plus, we'll have to be considering in April and May, what we're going to do with regard to I'm going to call the bleacher project, I'm just calling it the bleachers shortness, but whatever that project is gonna look like, how comprehensive it's gonna be, that will ultimately be part of the draft, the capital budget, but not necessarily what you have ready for us to consider in the context of the budget at the beginning of April?
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
And then, and all of that's gonna have to come out of Fund 32 anyway, so it's all gonna be transfers. And then somewhere in there, we're still, working out or getting the numbers or working on the bridge, correct?
Yes,
So you have a busy month?
yes.
Okay, all right.
My goal for you all is to have a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30-year budget. The 30-year budget, you will likely have to have the AED machine because it will be a very large number. But that way, at least you have an idea of when we life cycle cost out some of the equipment, what it is that we need to do, have money set aside to address these things. Now, some things you have in a life cycle costing analysis that will say this part will be, or this piece of equipment should last 15 years. We may budget a little bit closer to 12 years on that because of, as much as the manufacturers might like to think that piece of equipment is going to get 15 years, historically you only get 7 to 10, maybe 12 years out of it. So again, trying to put something together so at least you have that figure, and it's a rolling thing moving forward. So every year we have to update it with any type of cost increase. Other equipment comes online that will ultimately life cycle themselves out as we move forward, but that's my ultimate goal. If I were to give you a capital budget right now, there'd be a very large contingency number in there because I simply don't know.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that I'm not
No.
missing anything.
And either way, next month, maybe you're saying, or even potentially by the end of the month, Todd, you might be looking for an approval for a replacement of that Explorer? But that's
Yes.
Escape, sorry.
Yes, the Escape. Actually, as we were sitting here, a quote came in because we were asking, and Mark and my eyes kind of lit up at the cost because we were expecting a lot more, and it came in much, much cheaper than we were expecting.
But that's again going to be a fund
For
transfer
toasters.
out of Fund 32 or somewhere, Michelle?
We actually have money budgeted for a vehicle, so this year that we can utilize to pay for that, so we won't need to do any fund transfer.
We'll just push a vehicle back to next year that we were going to replace this year and replace this one instead.
Okay, so then it'll just come through as some kind of approval of actually expending the money.
Yes.
Some.
Is it a cheap
Yeah.
enough price you need us to act now?
I don't think so, but because it was approved in the budget, we actually wouldn't vote on
It-
the
it's-
Yeah, it's
payment. We
already-
would show the disposal
Yeah.
of the existing vehicle.
Oh, okay, so we don't
Correct,
even
so
have
we're
to do
just,
that
all we're
step.
doing is
Correct.
taking
When
the
you said
vehicle here,
Yeah.
and we're moving it forward and taking the one we were gonna replace here and moving
No, I'm
it
sorry,
back.
when Todd said he was going to be coming back to us, I thought you were going to be coming back for some approval.
No, I just want to let you, we'll be coming back because you will see a disposal.
Good enough.
But in a board update, we'll put what the cost of the new vehicle is so you have an idea what it was.
Okay.
So, Mark, obviously understanding you have not been here long enough to have uncovered all the skeletons. Just, the only concern I have is I feel like there are big numbers on here for things that I think were there last year, and maybe it's just because I read these things, they roll over. I guess I would just ask you to make sure you're focusing on things that say safety or building integrity. It seems to me like there are a lot of things in those categories, and I know we had a conversation last year that some things may not be properly categorized as actual, integrity of whether it's going to stand up straight. But, if there are things that we should be doing now to save ourselves significant money in a year or two, I think we'd all rather spend a lesser amount now.
Sure.
So, to the extent you can focus on those kinds of things especially, it would be helpful to us, I think, to understand where the money's going. And
What I've done in the past for capital budgets is I have a matrix of 5 or 6 different categories, and we have points assigned to them. As you go through it, you can see clearly something glaring if it's closer to 10, something not so glaring 1. That doesn't mean that the 1 isn't important, because maybe that's a curriculum-based thing that we want to go ahead and implement type of thing. But that way at least gives you an idea of what the importance are. It assesses a grade, if you will, to the importance of that particular project.
And I really appreciate what you said you're going to do in terms of laying out a longer-term plan. I mean, it's somewhat horrifying to me that I know the equipment at Radnor Elementary isn't that old, because the building's not that old. I mean, I think I'm a little disappointed that the PTO had to come forward with that money and that it wasn't kind of on our list of things to
You
be
mean
doing.
Wayne Elementary?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Wayne, the 30
right,
year.
I'm saying the 30-year-old Wayne's playground equipment is somewhat disappointing since I know the Radnor. But I also know, like Radnor, the red top
Well,
is
you want
starting
your
to feel
kids to play on the
involved.
playground equipment you played on.
You and I may, but not everybody feels that way.
So Sarah, can I just point out one
Yeah,
thing when
sure.
you talked about, like, there's big numbers on there where things haven't been
But I'm just
spent.
looking at like the HVAC and the administration building. I feel like that's on there every year.
And it is
Because
on
we
there,
keep
but
putting
one
it
of the
off.
things,
And I wasn't sure we were spending it.
one of the things that we've
Spend it
been
somewhere
doing
else.
with that is we've been trying to gather enough money over multiple years so that we can replace it all at once. And a good example where you can see that is if you look at the high school page, then you look about 2/3 of the way down, you see exterior bleachers. And in 18-19, you see 400,000.
Right.
And then 19-20, you see 400,000, and then in 2021, you see 400,000. That, all that's showing is that we haven't spent any of that 400,000 because we're trying to gather enough money to replace those bleachers by the time we get to 2021.
So let me make sure so what you're saying is, this isn't money we necessarily expect to spend this year. It's money we're setting aside this year so that 5 years from now, we'll have enough to do something bigger.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. That's actually really helpful for anybody who's kind of reading this online and thinks, because what it looks like when you just glance at
Right.
this is only 2 of all of our buildings have spent any of their capital dollars. So it looks like, we've had people say, you're just putting money into a capital fund and you're pretending it's there. And I just want to be clear, we're not doing that. We're actually budgeting the way you would when you know you're going to need a new roof on your house in a couple of years.
Correct. And I understand completely what you're saying, and I think if you all recall when the CAC came and we talked about this capital budgeting, what some of their recommendations is that we make this more user-friendly, that it has more information on it, and that it would include information about when things were replaced last, so that people didn't have to go and research. That just takes time, and 5 weeks wasn't enough for Mr. Brooks to get that completed.
Unbelievable.
But
Understood.
to your point, Mrs. Stern, you had asked me last time if there's much that changed 40 years ago when I graduated. There's several things that have not.
Got it. Thank you.
So is that,
Pool and
are we good with the?
Yeah, that's good.
I was gonna say, now we can move on to the pool and the natatorium, speaking of things that haven't changed since I graduated.
Exactly.
Probably since you were born.
No, the lockers are different, actually, because I was just in there last weekend. So, who's?
So
up?
I'll take this. So obviously, the pool has been around for a very long time, longer than 40 years. And we have some things that we're going to do this summer. Most of the mechanicals in there are original, so we're going to be replacing much of that. We're looking at somewhere around $90,000, including the UV light system that's over 20 years old, and you can't get replacement parts for it, short of the bulbs. So a lot of the stuff that we'll do will not be visual to people walking into the pool, but certainly from a mechanical standpoint, we'll take care of it. We're looking at making sure some of the ladders are redone, maybe some of the diving boards, certainly trying to clean up and neaten the interior as best we can, maybe some additional lighting in there as well. We're looking to drain the pool this summer for August, so we're taking it offline, and then we're going to clean it, and then there's an area that we're going to do some repairs to, again, and then refill it. So again, we're trying to make an effort to move forward to get that back up and running, but for the month of August, the pool is scheduled to be offline for all activities.
Is there a scoreboard going in, or?
Scoreboard, we have that, yes, so we have to install that as well.
Okay.
I assume anybody who needs to be made aware that it's going to be closed in August will be made
We-
aware, but I never hear about the pool. And then all of a sudden this year, I feel like that's all I'm hearing from. Are you doing anything with the locker rooms, which I hear are absolutely disgusting?
Yeah, the locker rooms need a lot of work.
Is
I'm
that part of the work you're planning on doing?
No, just outside of some cosmetic things initially, and that was going to be something that on next year's plan, I was going to make a recommendation to do a total redo of both of those locker rooms, because they're showing their age.
I guess my question is that if the pool is going to be drained in August.
Yes,
And the facility will be shut down for that,
yes.
Again, this is how you go to paint a wall and all of a sudden you're putting in, a staircase and a deck. But if you're gonna have the pool down in August for draining and pulling apart things with ladders and mechanicals and it's all kind of closed off, does it make sense to do whatever you're talking about with regard to the locker room at the same time? I don't know the scope of money.
Sure. Well, it's not so much the scope of money, it's also that most of these contractors are already committed for the summer.
Okay.
And you have to put it out for bid. So really, to be quite candid with you, right now, I should be focused on what we're doing next summer. And so I'm focusing on
Okay.
what we're doing this summer to get this up and running, and
Okay.
starting to focus on next summer. So next summer, we'll have things already presented to you probably by November, December, as to what we would like to do for us to get some bids out in the street, get some
Okay.
proposals, things like that, and then we can put them get on their timeline as well as on our calendar, so we can get things taken care of.
All right, so this is more like, maybe if the timing had worked out, it would have made sense, but we kind of
Yes.
missed our window.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just one point of clarification, the district always drains the pool for the month of August. We've closed it for the month of August. We're actually closing it a week earlier this year so that we can get a little bit of a head start. We have notified the township that it will not be available the last week of their swim program. And we've committed to work with them. So if we were going to do things to the locker rooms, that we would still be able to get them into the pool area and allow them to have some use to that. Quite frankly, as Mr. Brooks said, the project got much bigger than we anticipated. We did a walkthrough before he started, and there's a lot of things we think we can do cosmetically. The matter is just how much time do we have?
Is there enough time to, I think, I know I wrote an email to you all, right, about the lockers. Is it possible to, because I was in,
read it too.
well, the locker room's not,
The women's.
okay, the women's locker room, I did not go in that one. I identified as a man.
Good for you.
Yeah. I went into the men's locker room. I mean, it's the same tile and everything as when I was there, and it looks clean. It's very clean. Our guys do a fantastic job keeping it clean. It's just the inside of the lockers is rusty because, I mean, you have a bunch of, swimsuits and towels in there all day long. I mean, and it's a hot, humid environment, so it rusts. So is there any way, like I suggested, is there any way to take half of them out or all of them out and blast them and paint them?
So I have a contractor coming in next week to give me a price on whether or not we can either modify them or buy new ones with the idea of what the new plan's gonna look like so that it will still fit in. We can take them out, put them back in after we get done renovating what's inside. I will say with the floors, remember that floor is original.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's in decent shape, actually.
They do the best they can, but, some of that glazing wears off and it's not like I can refire it on site type of thing, so.
Yeah,
that's
it's
one of
kind of
the-
got a matte finish now instead
Exactly.
of a tile glazed finish. But
They do a great job.
Slip resistant.
Slip resistance, yeah. Well, the problem is the glazing actually gave you the slip resistance,
Yeah,
and that's
now it
all
is.
worn off, so it's sometimes
it's
not
pro
just a
slippery, not
thing.
anti-slippery.
Right.
Yeah. No, but look, I mean, our guys do a great job cleaning it. And I know that the Radnor Aquatic Club has ideas. I ran into my swim coach on Saturday at the gym. He's still coaching after 36 years. And I know him and Henry Himmons, who just retired finally from coaching in Westchester. Not finally, but it's been like forever. They had ideas to blow out the one wall and make visiting locker rooms because we have the one locker room that you share, visiting and home teams, which is kind of ugly if you're in there with Conestoga. And there's no ADA access to the
Second floor.
second
correct.
floor, which I'd have no idea how you would do that except an elevator or
Still
something.
working through that little detail, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
There was also talk of maybe investigating having a towel service, only to cut down on the wet towels, I guess, in the lockers on an ongoing basis. Someone had thrown out to me, should we be considering a towel service, so that the towels hanging around don't contribute to, I guess it's either the smell or the wetness that is now rusting out the lockers. But it was, somebody had
It's just
mentioned it to me.
Well, I mean, do they not have?
We do not have towels.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, when I was there, the coach, I mean, Mr. Himmons would hand you the swimsuit and a towel, and then they had these gigantic industrial laundry facility there.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
So we
You did
still
mention
have
it
the
to
laundry facility, but they use that for the microfiber cleaning. But as far as I know, the kids bring their own bathing suits
do.
now. So that's changed. somewhat.
Everybody wore their own bathing suits anyway, but you had to wear the school suit over it.
all right.
All right.
Mark, thank you for all your work
Yeah,
on this.
thank you.
Make sure and I know you're already doing this, but we've had a lot of communication, I know, with our, swimming boosters and parents, and just make sure that communication is continuing. I think sometimes as, parents see some of the pieces and the concerns, like the lockers and the rust, that they know here's the plan, and that some of the stuff that's happening this summer is going to be behind the scenes.
Sure.
There's a lot of mechanicals. Just want to make sure Mr. Friel and you have the opportunity to keep them abreast of the status.
Sure.
Would be great.
Thank you.
Plastic or aluminum? Oh, she was just asking
Plastic.
if they make rust.
I was just saying, like,
rust-proof
it would
lockers,
seem to
but-
me like they make that they would make some kind of lockers that aren't metal.
Yeah, plastic. It's a
Yeah,
composite
plastic
material.
of some sort for, if you're
Or
talking about
aluminum,
regulating.
if we got enough money.
That's true.
All right. So new business,
Yeah, is there any new business that anybody has?
nothing.
Nothing. Any public comment? Dr. Winters?
I have several public comments. First, I would like to commend the young woman who spoke advocating for the accessibility for the bleachers. I know what a challenge it can be to be in front of the public, and she did a great job. I would also like to mention that the Right at School program does something in terms of addressing the growing need that many of us know about the lack of volunteers in our schools and other institutions, so I think that's an important area that it's addressing. There are a couple of things that I question about that program, and one is I believe some of our students' families who may be most needy may not have access to the online components that they need, and we may need to provide some kind of access and support for people to actually use the online components so that people can sign up and maybe make sure that they are eligible for the appropriate kinds of assistance they may need to get the Right at School services. Thank you.
I'm
So
getting
I
a head
think
nod from
I just got to make
Mr.
sure.
Tony Brochuk behind you.
And also, I wanted to know that if, based on the history, if the costs rise exponentially or incrementally based on actual costs or greater profits for those in high places. Because sometimes there's always that bait and switch kind of thing that can happen, and I thought that would be a consideration. I know the contract rolls over year after year, but I would just want to make sure that, you know, in looking at parent needs, and we know that they may be growing over time, I think that's an area that we may need to look at. And finally, in terms of the facilities, I would like to encourage Mr. Brooks and others here who are putting in lights in different places to pay attention, if possible, to the Shedding Light forum that we held a couple of weeks ago with the League of Women Voters, because as we look at outdoor and indoor lighting, it does make an impact on things like sleep patterns. It does make a difference in learning. It does make a difference in how people's moods and emotional reactions to situations occur. So I think that you need to really look closely at the latest research, and I will be doing an interview with a chronobiologist from Drexel in the next week or two, because it's really an evolving science that I think when we care about kids learning, we want to make sure that we're optimizing every factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else?
And I'm never usually the one to try to extend a meeting. I think public comment's over. Under new business, I did want to mention one other topic.
Sure.
We did have a request from a resident on whether or not to use one of our elementary buildings as a polling location. So all of our other buildings are used currently as polling locations. And I don't know the whole history with our middle school. What I understand from, I don't have all the details, and I don't know if all that, our middle school was being used as a polling location while the library was being
Yes.
renovated.
And now we'd like to get it
And
back
our,
over there.
right, and we don't have that confirmed, but that's what I understand, that it will eventually move back. So there has been a request. When the person first requested to use Wayne as a polling location, I had shared administratively from my perspective, we were in the midst of making our calendar at the time, and I said our struggle is that if we weren't polling locations, we would hold school on those days. So that is one of the challenges that presents for us as a district. The other challenge it presents for us is right now, this is Wayne Elementary. It is our one school that is not a polling location, our one elementary. So we will often have in-service programs there because we don't have traffic there. Polling locations do bring traffic at times as well. So I want to just bring that forward to the Facilities Committee to make the Facilities Committee aware that we've had that request. There are questions from board members. I think administratively there's things that we would need to look into with the county that are really beyond us as well. But wanted to make sure I brought that forward to the board.
Yeah, I'm trying to verify with the county and other counties, it's voter services that would make that request of the school district. It's not individual residents. So again, it's got to be an official request, and whether or not they're even this is even on their radar.
Yeah, I looked into it when we were on the calendar committee, and I
I say
completely forgot.
The parents on the calendar committee were in favor of moving the other way, like
Yeah, getting them all
getting them
out.
all out of the school so that we could have those 2 extra days of school.
Or if you're gonna have them all in school, have it be in the gyms, because I think every gym, I mean, Wayne has an outdoor access, but it's dirt, I think. But,
But Radnor Elementary doesn't
But
have
yeah.
a way to segregate.
One of the problems I see just
for
as an
security, we
observation-
want to segregate everybody also.
Well, 2 things. Security is an issue, but more importantly, parking.
Yeah.
Our parking
Yeah.
lots are pretty full already with our staff. And then, of course, depending upon the polling time, the election, some of those elections draw almost 100% plurality.
Yep.
Now, obviously not all during the day, but again, that's a consideration. And then, of course, parking, and I'm thinking Wayne Elementary along West Wayne Avenue or some other place, and then having access to, for people with special needs getting into the facility might be an issue. So there's a lot of considerations.
Yeah, and Radnor Elementary, what people do when they can't find parking is park in what's a fire lane.
Right.
And when school's out, I think people kind of just don't, they shake their heads and say, you really shouldn't do that. But if you have people parking in the fire lane during the school day, that would be a real problem. But to make it truly accessible for voters, you'd want them to be able to park closer. I mean, at Radnor Elementary, that parking lot's full during the day. You'd have to go park across the bridge. And that would, I think, really keep a lot of voters from coming
The
in.
voting booths on the bridge.
Well,
People would actually
That
use
is
the
not,
bridge.
that's not secure voting procedure.
so, couple of things about that. One, I took a look at the various polling locations for that part of town. It's all very goofy, and it's been very strange for the last couple of years between the closing of the library, and they moved it over to the middle school, and and the firehouse is now at Salpizio, but the thing, and they did, the town was redistricted a few years ago. They redrew some lines, and it's my understanding that the township is getting ready to, as a result of the 2020 census, is going to be potentially redrawing lines again in 2021. And so, what might be the appropriate polling location as soon as 2021 might not be correct again. But in terms of a process, if you're looking into the process at the county level, I mean, I guess, see what anybody else thinks. I would think, let's get clear on what the process is.
Yeah.
And then, while I appreciate that one person might have come forward, that's a surprisingly big change that, I mean, it's caused a lot of confusion in the last few years about, right downtown Wayne, St. Mary's is Ward 3, right across the street is 6, but the gym that's on the other side of the field is 3. I mean, you can't even keep it straight right now. And I would say that kind of change or request for a change needs to be communicated, probably needs to be communicated to some of the area people who are involved in running the voting, whether it's, maybe speaking to the League of Women Voters about getting the word out, there's a potential change, or does the community support a change now, or should we wait until after the 2020 census? I mean, it may sound good to this one person, and it may or may not make sense, but I would say that it's the kind of thing that should probably be communicated to more than just one person. And maybe this person, we could suggest that this person reach out to the League of Women Voters and see what they think would be a supportive, community-based way to handle the request.
In a timeline, I would think, too, the longer period of time that you
You've
make that
missed
decision
You've missed
now.
the primary.
Right, so it's too late this year.
It's clearly, it's not the primary at this point. It would be, November at this point, the request is coming
Well,
to
and
a
I
full
would
vote.
argue that would create a lot of confusion
That's a
in an
horrible
election
idea.
year to have the primary in one spot and then the general election somewhere else. We wouldn't want to create that kind of confusion.
So we'll have Mark look into it,
Yeah.
and Dr. Winters knows how to do it, actually.
Exactly.
I think she's
So,
been involved
there
in
you
moving
go.
a few of them around town.
Yeah, but,
so.
Mark can look into it, but I don't know that Mark needs to say, the district is
No, I'm just
excited
saying
about
maybe
finding out if you will
No,
please.
no.
No, maybe
Well,
maybe
Dr.
the,
Winters knows.
Yeah.
I'm saying maybe the district could respond back to the request
No, I
and
was saying
suggest.
she's working on it.
Yeah, good, perfect.
We've assigned work to
So-
members of the public,
Do you have
perfect.
any other
Thank you.
can of worms you want to open?
No other.
Perfect,
Can
thank
I
you.
open one?
Yes.
What's the status of the bus report? The busing report? Study?
So that is, we're looking at the business meeting this month.
Okay.
So the sleep committee is going to come, and actually we're going to discuss at board leadership whether we'll have that presentation actually during the business meeting itself, or if we'll plan a meeting right before our business meeting, but have a committee of the whole to have the recommendations and the status of the, sleep committee, really just status of where we are with the bus report and all of those pieces. So that's coming the end of the month.
Fantastic. Anybody else?
No.
Going once, going twice, and we're adjourned.